I thought marrying my childhood best friend meant forever until I discovered I was just a chapter in her secret life. Part 1. Echoes of Yesterday. I never expected betrayal to wear such a familiar face. Madeline and I had been together for what felt like a lifetime. We met in the 3rd grade when she stole my juice box and smiled like she knew she'd own me forever. Back then, I hated her for it. But somewhere between stolen lunches, teenage phone calls, and awkward prom photos, she became my world. We got married at 27. Everyone said we were a perfect match. The kind of love that grows from roots so deep, not even time could shake them. They didn't see the arguments, the cracks, the way her touch grew colder with each passing year. Or maybe they did, and like me, they pretended not to. Our life was comfortable, too comfortable, the kind of rhythm that dulls you into sleep. Work, dinner, Netflix, bed, repeat. But I didn't mind the monotony. I saw it as peace, stability. She saw it as a cage. I started noticing the signs when she changed her perfume. It was subtle at first, something floral, lighter than the warm vanilla she'd worn since college. I asked about it once. She smiled and said, "Just felt like something new." Then kissed my cheek and went back to scrolling through her phone. That's how it started. Little things. A shift in the way she looked at me, how she stopped asking how my day was, how she always kept her phone face down. But love is a powerful blinder. I wanted to believe we were just going through a phase, that maybe we'd reignite whatever spark we once had. I started planning a surprise weekend getaway, booked a cabin in the hills, the same one where we spent our first anniversary. I thought it might fix us. It broke me instead. The day before the trip, I got home early. I was excited, wanted to surprise her, maybe cook dinner, set the tone for something new. I walked through the front door, expecting the smell of her candles, the soft hum of her music. What I found was silence, and her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. Face up. I don't know what made me look. I had never touched her phone before, never even thought about it. But something in my gut twisted, the same way animals sense storms before they come. The message on the screen froze my blood. "Can't stop thinking about last night, your skin still tastes like sin." I stared at it. Time stopped. My lungs forgot how to breathe. Another buzz. "Are we still on for tonight? Tell him you're working late. I want all of you." My hand shook as I picked up the phone. I tapped into the messages, my mind screaming that I shouldn't, that this was the point of no return, but I'd already crossed it the second I read that first text. His name was Marcus, not saved as Marcus. No, she was smarter than that. He was saved as Marcia Jim. A sick kind of irony, dozens of texts, photos, plans, whispered promises and filthy confessions. I saw the date, the time, one of the nights I'd fallen asleep waiting for her, thinking she was catching up on office work. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. My chest ached, my heart, my pride, my memories, all crashing into each other like glass shattering in slow motion. Every laugh we shared, every "I love you", every quiet night, all of it felt like a cruel joke now. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in the garage, in the driver's seat of our car, staring at the steering wheel for hours. Numb, hollow, dead. When she came home, I watched her. She smiled, kissed my cheek, told me traffic was a nightmare. I nodded, said nothing, and in that moment, I realized the person standing in front of me wasn't my wife. She was a stranger wearing her skin. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the edge of the bed, listening to her breathe, that slow, peaceful rhythm of someone unburdened by guilt. I wondered what else she'd lied about, how long it had been going on, if I was ever enough for her, or just the safety net she used to keep herself from falling too far. And worse, I wondered if I had become invisible in my own marriage. The next morning, she suggested cancelling the trip. "I've got too much work," she said, not even looking at me. "Maybe next weekend?" I nodded. "Sure, next weekend." But I had other plans now, plans that didn't include pretending anymore. Part 2. When truth bleeds through the cracks. The days that followed were a study in restraint. I didn't tell her I knew. I woke up beside her, made her coffee, kissed her forehead. I played my part so well I almost convinced myself nothing had changed, but inside everything was bleeding. I started watching her more closely, not to catch her, I already had, but to understand how I could have missed it for so long. How someone could lie so easily and still look you in the eyes like they love you. She still laughed at my jokes, still curled into me on the couch like we were some cozy happy couple, still called me babe and told me she loved me every morning. And it made me sick, because now I knew what was behind the curtain. I knew how easy it was for her to compartmentalize, to treat me like a habit while giving her passion to someone else. Marcus. I started to obsess over him, who he was, how they met, why him. I didn't confront her because I wasn't ready for her answers. I wasn't ready to hear her rewrite our history, to tell me it had been broken long before the first text. I wasn't ready to see her cry crocodile tears, or worse, not cry at all. So I became a ghost in my own life, silent, watching, gathering the truth piece by piece. One night she went to work late again. I followed. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I tailed her car through the city, keeping a few cars behind. She didn't drive to her office. She didn't go to the gym. She pulled into a quiet suburban neighborhood and parked outside a modest townhouse with a blue door. She knocked once, waited. The door opened. Marcus, tall, broad shoulders, barefoot, wearing sweatpants and a lazy smile like he wasn't waiting for my wife, just expecting her. She kissed him before even stepping inside. Not a polite kiss, not a soft peck. A kiss that once belonged to me. I drove away before I could throw up. That night, when she came home, I pretended to be asleep. She crawled into bed like nothing happened, like she hadn't just handed her body to someone else while her ring still rested on her finger. I lay there, facing the wall, wondering if she could hear my heart breaking in silence. I started planning my exit, not a dramatic explosion, not a storm of yelling or broken glass. No, if she could lie calmly, so could I. I met with a lawyer, quietly opened a new bank account, changed my passwords, took photos of the messages, printed screenshots, documented everything. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth to leave scars. But the strangest part was that even with all the anger, part of me still wanted her to choose me, to confess, to cry and beg and tell me Marcus was a mistake, that she lost herself but wanted to come back, that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. That hope was a parasite, and it was killing me. A week later, everything shattered on its own. I came home early again, not on purpose, just traffic was lighter than usual. The house was quiet. I walked to the bedroom and froze. Her suitcase was on the bed, not a gym bag, not a purse. A suitcase, open, half full. She was in the closet pulling down a dress I'd bought her last Christmas, the one she said she loved but never wore. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, hey," she said, trying to sound casual. I stared at her. "Going somewhere?" She blinked. "It's not what you think." Funny how that sentence always means exactly what you think. I stepped closer. "Then what is it, Maddie? A business trip? Another work thing?" She exhaled sharply and sat on the edge of the bed. "Can we just talk?" she said softly. I waited, heart pounding. She looked up at me, her eyes heavy, not with guilt but with exhaustion. "I've been seeing someone." Just like that, no drama, no hesitation, just words dropped like a knife. I stayed quiet. She kept going. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't go looking for it, but I was lonely, and I felt like we stopped trying, like we were just existing. I stared at her, forcing my voice to stay level. "So instead of telling me that, you found someone else?" She nodded. "I know, I'm sorry, I didn't know how to say it. I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out bitter and broken. "You didn't want to hurt me, so you stabbed me in the back and smiled every day like nothing was wrong?" Tears welled in her eyes, real or rehearsed. I couldn't tell anymore. "I didn't mean to fall in love with him," she whispered. That was the moment the final thread snapped. Not the cheating, not the lies, the love. She didn't just give him her body, she gave him her heart, and she was leaving. I walked out of the room before she could see me fall apart. In the bathroom, I gripped the sink and stared at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, eyes hollow. I looked like someone who had aged 5 years in 5 weeks, because I had. I closed my eyes and whispered one word. "Okay." Not because it was okay, but because I had to be, because this was the moment I stopped fighting for someone who had already walked away. Part 3. The weight of goodbye. She left 2 days later. No shouting, no final argument, no dramatic goodbye in the rain, just the soft pull of a zipper closing her suitcase and a quiet, "I'll come back for the rest of my stuff later." I stood in the hallway as she walked past me. She didn't reach for my hand, didn't touch my face, just gave me a look, half apology, half relief, and walked out the door. That was it. 19 years of friendship, 8 years of marriage, dozens of birthdays, holidays, lazy Sundays, all reduced to the sound of her heels clicking on the wooden floor as she walked away. When the door closed behind her, the silence hit me like a punch. For the first time in weeks, I cried. Not loud sobs, not movie-style heartbreak, just silent tears that refused to stop, rolling down my cheeks as I stood in the same hallway where we used to laugh, argue, kiss. I didn't move for hours. The next morning, I started collecting the ruins. Her coffee mug still sat by the sink, lipstick faint on the rim, her slippers were by the bed, a hair tie on the nightstand, a note she'd written weeks ago with a grocery list and a doodle of a heart in the corner. It was like a ghost still lived here. I boxed her things slowly, carefully. Every item was a memory, a wound, a reminder that I'd been loving someone who had already left long before her body followed. There was a photo frame on the dresser, the two of us in Hawaii, smiling so wide it hurt to look at. I stared at it for a long time before turning it face down. I didn't throw it away, not yet, because even broken things deserve a place. The nights were the hardest. It wasn't just the emptiness beside me in bed, it was the ritual of missing her, brushing my teeth and instinctively looking over to see her, reaching for her in the dark, half expecting her to whisper good night before drifting off. But the whispers never came, and the silence never stopped. I kept wondering what Marcus had that I didn't. Was he funnier, more passionate, more alive? Did he see her in a way I'd forgotten how to? Did he make her feel seen? The questions were poison, and I drank them every night. One evening, a week after she left, I got a call from her sister Claire. She didn't know what had happened. "She said you two were taking space," Claire said cautiously, but something in her voice, I don't know. She didn't sound sad. I almost told her everything, about the messages, the affair, the way Maddie had walked out like it was a business decision, not the collapse of a life, but I didn't, because I still wasn't ready to hand out shame like a weapon. "She left," I said simply. "She's with someone else." Claire went quiet. Then, "I'm so sorry." "Yeah," I whispered. "Me too." That night, I sat on the balcony with a whiskey in my hand and her old sweater wrapped around my shoulders. I hated that I still found comfort in something that smelled like her. But grief doesn't follow logic. It follows scent, sound, memory. I stared out at the city and tried to remember who I was before us, before being her husband became my identity, before our life was intertwined so tightly I couldn't tell where she ended and I began, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't know. The next morning, I made a list. It started simple: clean out the closet, cancel the anniversary trip, change the bed sheets, go back to the gym. Then it became something more: learn to cook for one, find a new therapist, burn the memory of her hands from my skin, stop waiting for closure. On day 14, I received a letter in the mail. It wasn't from her, it was from Marcus. A handwritten letter, 3 pages, folded neatly, no return address. My heart slammed in my chest as I opened it. I didn't know what I expected. An apology? A confession? Some pathetic plea for understanding? It was none of that. It was worse. I didn't mean for this to happen, but when we met, she looked lost. Said she hadn't felt truly alive in years. I didn't know she was married at first, but by the time I found out, it was too late. I'm not writing to defend what we did. I know it was wrong. I just want you to know, she never spoke badly about you. She said you were kind, safe, comfortable. She said she felt like she was fading in your love. I know that hurts, and I'm sorry, but I love her, and I'm not going to pretend I regret it. I dropped the letter, not because of the words, because of the truth in them. That's when the rage came, not at Marcus, not even at Maddie, at myself, for letting her fade, for thinking comfort was enough, for loving her in a way that felt safe, but never deep enough to catch her when she slipped away. I had built a home for her, but she wanted to fly. That night, I burned the letter in the kitchen sink, watched the paper curl into ash and disappear. Then I stood in the bathroom, looked into the mirror and said it out loud for the first time. She's gone. Not as an observation, as a declaration. Part 4. What remains after the storm. It's strange how a house can still feel full of someone who isn't there. 2 weeks after she left, The scent of her shampoo still lingered in the bathroom. Her name was still saved under my love in my phone. Her coat still hung in the hallway. Every time I opened the fridge, I saw her almond milk sitting untouched on the top shelf. I couldn't bring myself to throw it out. Maybe I thought if I didn't erase her, she'd come back. Maybe part of me didn't want to be alone. Not really alone. Not in a house where the silence could scream louder than any argument we ever had. But the truth was loud now. She was gone. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. Gone in the way that someone vanishes long before they pack a suitcase. And I was left to sweep the debris of a life that didn't belong to us anymore. I started talking to myself. Not in a crazy way, more like a man trying to echo his own voice, just to remember what it sounded like without her beside it. I'd say things like, "You're okay," and "breathe," and "she chose her path." Sometimes I didn't believe myself. Sometimes I'd argue back. One night I stood in front of the mirror and said, "You deserved better." And my reflection asked, "Did you?" The thing about grief is, it doesn't come with rules. It just arrives like an uninvited guest sitting beside you at dinner, walking with you through the grocery store, sleeping on the other half of your bed. Some nights I screamed into my pillow. Other nights I slept like a stone. But every morning I woke up alone, and that was the constant I couldn't escape. Then came the message, a single text. "Maddie, can I come by tomorrow to get the rest of my stuff?" No emotion, no small talk, just logistics. I stared at the screen for 5 minutes before typing. Me. "Sure, I won't be home." I didn't want to see her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Let her come like a ghost and disappear the same way. I spent that night walking the city. Miles under my shoes, music in my ears, thoughts chasing each other in circles. I ended up on the bench near the lake where we'd once spent our first anniversary. I remembered how she leaned into me that night, whispering, "I can't wait to grow old with you." And I had believed her. We always think love is forever when it's young, but time has a way of exposing the cracks that passion tries to fill. And I think, deep down, Maddie started drifting the moment our life became too stable, too predictable. She wanted chaos, fire, risk. And I gave her calm. Safe wasn't enough. Maybe it never was. The next day, I stayed away while she came and packed the rest of her things. When I returned, the house felt like it had exhaled. Her coat was gone, the almond milk too. So were the little things. The Polaroids from the fridge, the stack of unread books she'd always meant to finish, her umbrella with the broken handle. But she left behind her wedding ring. It was sitting on the kitchen counter. No note, just metal, heavy, silent, final. I picked it up. It was warm from the sun coming through the window. I turned it over in my hand for a long time. Then I put it in the drawer, where we kept batteries and scissors and all the other things we never quite knew what to do with. That felt fitting. Weeks passed. Pain softened, slowly, then all at once. Some days I thought of her every hour. Other days I went whole afternoons before her name crept in. I went back to the gym, took long walks, started reading again. One Saturday, I drove out of the city and hiked a trail I'd never been on before. At the top, I stood alone, wind in my face, heart beating with something that felt almost like freedom. That night, I didn't cry. That was the first time in over a month. Then came the call. "Claire, Maddie's in the hospital," she said quickly. "It's not serious, but I thought you should know." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Car accident, minor. She's okay, just banged up." I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Worry? Anger? Indifference? But I felt something. A deep, low pull in my chest. An ache that hadn't died fully yet. "Where is she?" I asked before I could stop myself. Claire gave me the name of the hospital. I hung up and stared at the steering wheel for 20 minutes before turning the ignition. When I walked into the hospital room, she looked surprised. "Hey," she said quietly. I nodded. My eyes scanned the bruises on her arms, the bandage on her forehead. "You okay?" She nodded. "Just sore," she said. "Airbag got me good." I stood in the doorway, unsure if I should come closer. She broke the silence. "You didn't have to come. I know." "But you did," I exhaled. "Old habits," I said. She smiled faintly. And for a moment, it was like time folded in on itself, like we were back in the middle of our story, before the lies, before Marcus, before everything broke. But I didn't walk to her. I didn't hold her hand. I just stood there, a man visiting a stranger in his wife's skin. And when she looked at me with something like regret, I finally saw it clearly. She wasn't mine anymore. Part 5. Ghosts don't always stay gone. After the hospital visit, something in me shifted. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was acknowledgement. I saw Maddie clearly now. Not the version I built in my head over the years, not the woman I clung to in denial, but who she really was. Fragile, impulsive, capable of love, yes, but just as capable of destruction. She wasn't evil, just broken in ways I couldn't fix, and that made it easier to let go. A little. That week, I cleared the rest of her things from the house. The shared drawer in the bathroom, the stack of magazines she never read, her favorite blanket on the couch. I packed them all into boxes and dropped them at Claire's place. No messages, no goodbye notes, no drama, just a quiet end to what had already died. But the ghost of her lingered in different ways now, not in scent or sound, but in routine. Every time I made coffee, I poured 2 mugs out of habit. Every time I came home late, I reached for my phone to text her. Grief is strange like that. It doesn't scream. It whispers, soft, unseen, constant. I tried dating again. I matched with a woman named Erin, a graphic designer who loved dogs and horror movies. We went for drinks. She was kind, smart, funny. She touched my arm when she laughed, and for a moment, I remembered what it felt like to be wanted. But when she leaned in at the end of the night, I froze. Not because I didn't like her, but because I realized I was still kissing Maddie in my head. And that wasn't fair to Erin, or to me. I apologized. She smiled, understanding more than I expected. "You're still healing," she said. "Don't rush the scar." We didn't see each other again, but I'll always be grateful for her grace. Then came Marcus. I didn't expect him to show up, not on a Tuesday, not in broad daylight. But there he was, standing in front of my house, arms crossed, eyes hidden behind expensive sunglasses. My stomach turned. I opened the door slowly. He didn't wait for an invitation. "I'm not here to fight," he said quickly. "Just talk." "Talk," I echoed, not moving aside. He sighed. "Look, man, I didn't plan for any of this. Maddie and it wasn't supposed to happen like that." "Like what?" I snapped. "Behind my back, in my bed?" His face tensed. "I loved her," he said finally. "Still do," I laughed bitterly. "You don't even know what that means." "She's not doing well," he continued, ignoring the jab. "After the accident, after everything. And that's my problem." "Why?" "Because," he said, stepping forward, "you're the only one she ever really trusted, and she's scared." I stared at him. For a moment, I saw not the man who stole my wife, but a man who was just as lost as I had been. "She made her choice," I said, voice low, "and you were part of it." He nodded slowly. "I know, I just thought, maybe you should hear it from me." "Hear what?" "She never stopped loving you." I blinked. For a moment, silence stretched between us like glass. Then I said the only thing that felt real. "That's the problem, Marcus. She loved too many people at once, and none of them completely." He left after that. No punches, no shouting, just 2 men standing on the ashes of the same fire. But after he was gone, I couldn't shake what he said. She never stopped loving you. Love wasn't the issue, it was the lies, the choices, the betrayal. And love, when tangled in deception, is poison. Sweet, familiar, and deadly. That night, I pulled out the wedding ring, held it in my palm. Then I took it outside and buried it under the old oak tree in the backyard. The one where we once carved our initials, young and dumb and full of dreams. As the dirt covered it, I whispered goodbye. Not to Maddie, to the version of me that still needed her. Part 6. The space she left behind. There's something haunting about silence when it's not chosen. I used to dream of quiet mornings. No arguing, no tension, just peace. But now, in the stillness of a house that no longer echoed with her voice, peace felt more like punishment. Every tick of the clock reminded me I had once loved so loudly and lost so completely. I stopped playing music, stopped turning on the TV. I wanted to hear it. The full weight of the emptiness she left behind. And it was deafening. I kept busy, of course. I worked, I exercised, I even cleaned the attic, something I had avoided for years. Up there, I found old boxes full of wedding photos, anniversary cards, scribbled love notes from years gone by. A time capsule of a man who still believed promises meant permanence. I sat on the dusty floor for hours, going through everything. One card caught my eye. Her handwriting, messy and rushed, read, "If I ever forget why we chose each other, remind me. Don't give up on me." The ink was faded. The paper smelled like the past. I traced her words with my thumb. She had asked me not to give up, and I hadn't. I had fought for us, right up until the moment I realized she wasn't fighting back. A few days later, I met Claire for coffee. We hadn't talked much since the hospital, but when she messaged me, I didn't hesitate. She greeted me with a hug. Longer than usual, warmer than I expected. "How are you?" she asked gently. I shrugged. "Existing," she nodded. "That's better than drowning." We sat by the window. Rain tapped against the glass. It felt poetic somehow, the weather still mourning with me. She sipped her latte, then glanced at me. "She talks about you, a lot." I didn't respond. "She knows she ruined it," Claire said, "but that doesn't stop her from missing you." I met her eyes. "Missing me doesn't change what she did." "No," she agreed. "But maybe it helps her understand what she lost." I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. That night, I dreamed of Maddie again. We were back in Italy, where we had gone for our honeymoon. She wore that sundress I always loved, yellow with white flowers, the one that danced in the wind when she laughed. She reached for me, but this time, I didn't take her hand. I just watched her walk into the crowd, swallowed by strangers, until she vanished completely. When I woke, there were tears on my cheeks, not because I missed her, but because my subconscious had finally let her go. The following weekend, I got a call from my brother Nate. "Come fishing," he said. "I don't fish." "You don't need to, just bring beer." We spent the afternoon by the lake, lines in the water, saying very little, the way men do when emotions are too raw for words. After a long silence, Nate said, "You're not the same." "Good or bad?" I asked. He looked out across the water. "Different. Older, sadder maybe, but also sharper." "Sharper? You see clearer now, that's not nothing." I didn't know what to say, but something about those words stuck with me. I wasn't healed, not fully, but I was changing, not into someone new, but into someone I had forgotten I could be. That night, I stood in the mirror again. I didn't say anything. I just looked, and for the first time in months, I didn't see a man defined by betrayal. I saw a man still standing, a man scarred, yes, but not broken. A man who had learned that sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who teach us how to survive without them. The next morning I made 2 mugs of coffee again, but this time I drank them both. Because some habits aren't about grief, they're about reclaiming the life you almost lost. Part 7. When the past Knox spring came late that year, the trees bloomed hesitantly, like they weren't sure they were ready. I understood that feeling. I too was cautious about growth, about blooming again after a season of rot. But there's something about warmer air, about the way light starts to stretch into the evening that makes hope harder to ignore. I started sleeping with the windows open. The house smelled like air again, not memory, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I had made it through the worst. Then I got the letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter in her handwriting. The envelope had no return address, just my name. I stared at it for hours before opening it. I don't know why. Maybe part of me was afraid it would undo all the quiet I had fought so hard to build. Eventually, I broke the seal. Her words were careful, wounded, honest in a way I hadn't seen from her in years. "I know you probably won't answer. I'm not even sure if you'll read this, but I needed to try. I've lost so much, more than I can explain. But nothing hurts more than knowing I became a stranger to you. I keep thinking about the first time you said you loved me, about how safe I felt, how certain, and I don't know how I let that go. I wanted you to know I'm sorry, not because I want anything from you, but because you deserved more than what I gave. You always did. There was no plea, no begging for a second chance, just regret, raw, unfiltered. I folded the letter and put it in the drawer. I didn't respond. Some things don't need to be revisited. A few days later, I ran into her mother at the grocery store. It was awkward at first, small talk, forced smiles. But then she looked at me, really looked, and said, "She loved you, you know." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because love wasn't the issue. It never was. It was the lying, the hiding, the choice to leave the truth bleeding on the floor while pretending nothing was wrong. We stood in the cereal aisle for a while. two people grieving the same woman in different ways. "I just want her to be okay," I said finally. Her mother nodded. "So do I." Then she left. And somehow that small exchange felt more like closure than the letter had. Life, for the most part, continued. I took on new projects at work. I reconnected with friends I had pushed away. I even started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. It wasn't good, but it felt real. And one afternoon, I noticed something. I hadn't thought about her all day, not once. That realization hit me harder than expected, because forgetting someone, even for a moment, means healing isn't a fantasy anymore. It's happening. Still, there were ghosts, not of her, but of myself. The version of me that used to believe love conquered all. The version of me that thought loyalty was enough. I missed him sometimes, not because he was better, but because he was unscarred. Now I was sharper, quieter, a little colder, but also stronger. I knew the value of truth now, the danger of blind faith, the cost of silence, and I swore I'd never pay those prices again. Late one evening, I received another message, this time from Claire, just a single line. "You should come see her." I stared at the screen. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake, I just felt tired and curious, not about her, but about myself. Could I face her? Could I see her without falling back into the wreckage? I didn't know, but I knew this. If I didn't face it now, I'd carry it forever. So I replied, "Tell me when." Part 8. What remains after goodbye? I didn't sleep the night before seeing her, not because I was afraid of what she might say, but because I didn't know who I would become in that room. I had spent months learning how to breathe without her, how to walk through days without stumbling over memories, and now I was willingly stepping back into the place where it all broke. Claire met me outside the rehab center. "She's doing better," she said. "Cleaner, clearer." I nodded. "That's good." She looked at me. "You don't owe her anything." "I know. But maybe you owe it to yourself." That landed harder than I expected. Inside, the halls smelled sterile. The walls were a pale blue, meant to soothe, but I didn't feel calm, just present, awake. She was sitting by the window when I entered, thin, paler than I remembered, but still her. Maddie. She turned slowly, as if unsure her eyes weren't tricking her. "Hey," she whispered. "Hi." We stared at each other for a long time. There was no rush, no demands, just two people sitting across years of silence trying to bridge the impossible. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said finally. "I wasn't sure either." She smiled, a soft, broken thing. "I've thought about this moment every day." "So have I." She looked down at her hands. "I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to fix." I nodded. "You did. And I'm sorry." She said it without excuses. No justifications, no tears, just truth. And that, more than anything, made me believe her. "I know," I said, "but this isn't about fixing anymore." "No? No, it's about letting go." Her eyes shimmered. "Are you letting me go?" "I already did." She closed her eyes. I watched her exhale like a weight had finally left her chest. Or maybe mine. We talked for over an hour, about little things. Life, the weather, the book she was reading, the way she missed my coffee. It was almost normal, if you ignored the fracture beneath every word, but I wasn't there to rekindle. I was there to release. As I stood to leave, she asked, "Do you hate me?" I paused. "No," I said, "but I don't love you anymore either, and that's harder." She nodded, biting her lip. "I hope you find peace." "I already am." I walked out without looking back, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't need to anymore. Weeks passed, and life, quiet, unremarkable life, kept moving. I adopted a dog, started jogging in the mornings, smiled more than I used to. Sometimes I even caught myself laughing. The pain wasn't gone, but it was softer, worn down by time and truth and choice. One night I stood outside under a sky full of stars and realized something. I had made it, not unscarred, not unchanged, but whole. I had survived the storm not by waiting for the sun, but by learning how to walk in the rain. There's a freedom in knowing the worst has already happened, a clarity in accepting what cannot be undone. Maddie was my beginning once, but endings matter more, because they define not what we were, but who we become after. And I became someone stronger, someone honest, someone alive. This is not a love story, this is a survival story, and I lived. The end.